Unbelievable. Picture this. A nation that has relied almost entirely on American defense technology suddenly announces plans to build full fighter jets on its own soil. Not Lockheed Martin's F-35, not any system coming out of Washington. We're talking about the Gripen, Sweden's next-generation fighter. Canada has just stepped into a historic moment that very few people saw coming. Replacing its aging CF-18 fleet is no longer just a procurement decision. This has turned into a major geopolitical move, where Ottawa is now choosing between loyalty to a longtime ally and the pursuit of technological independence. Saab has just made a bold move, establishing a complete Gripen E production line inside Canada. Europe is backing the idea. The economic case is strong. And Washington? They never saw this shock coming. In March 2025, Prime Minister Mark Carney ordered a full re-evaluation of Canada's fighter jet procurement program. This wasn't an impulsive decision. It came after years of intense debate over runaway F-35 costs and growing technological dependence on the United States. The industry minister publicly supported examining alternatives. Analysis continued through September. Then, the bombshell dropped. Saab isn't just offering to sell jets. They want to build a full-scale manufacturing facility inside Canada. This isn't simple assembly using imported parts. We're talking about complete production, carbon composite airframes, avionics, electronic warfare systems, radar, and flight control computers. The projected outcome? Around 10,000 long-term aerospace jobs, independent upgrade rights, full control over software source code, and, most importantly, the ability to export without needing Washington's approval. This isn't just a sales agreement. It represents a fundamental strategic shift. Canada would no longer be a dependent customer. It would become a production hub serving not only the Royal Canadian Air Force, but also Ukraine NATO partners and other allies in need of modern fighters. The Conservative Party reacted immediately. Their concern centered on existing F-35 commitments and current jobs tied to the Joint Strike Fighter program. But, when you look closely, the domestic economic benefits tilt heavily toward Gripen. Let's look at the real numbers. Canada's F-35 program is projected to cost about 27 billion Canadian dollars for 88 aircraft. At first glance, that sounds reasonable for a major defense acquisition. But dig deeper and the picture darkens. Canada joined the Joint Strike Fighter program back in 2007. The original promise was proportional industrial value, roughly $15.5 billion from 2007 to 2038. That sounds impressive until you realize Canada's role is limited to subcontracting. Canadian firms manufacture small components based on Lockheed Martin designs with no control rights and no independent upgrade capability. With Gripen, the situation is completely different. A full-scale production facility gives Canada control over the entire process. Bombardier builds the airframes. CAE develops avionics. MDA produces radar and sensor systems. And those 10,000 jobs aren't just figures on paper. These are engineers, technicians, and highly skilled specialists working in a strategically vital industry. But the biggest advantage isn't economic, it's geopolitical. Gripen is not bound by United States international traffic in arms regulations. What does that mean? Canada can export freely, without asking Washington for permission. Ottawa could supply Ukraine with domestically produced aircraft without waiting for White House approval. Sweden has been a full NATO member since 2024, and producing Gripen in Canada fully complies with alliance industrial rules. But unlike the F-35, this doesn't lock Canada into a supply chain controlled by Lockheed Martin and the Pentagon. Ukraine is in a critical situation. They urgently need modern fighters to counter Russian air power. F-16 transfers from NATO allies move slowly, are politically complex, and always require United States approval for every batch. Gripen built in Canada changes that equation entirely. First, Gripen is designed for harsh environments. Rough runways? No problem. Freezing weather? That's the environment it was built for. It can operate from dispersed locations, small bases, even modified highway sections. That's exactly what Ukraine needs in modern warfare. Second, with no ITAR restrictions, Ottawa can make export decisions independently. No United States consultation, no shipment-by-shipment negotiations. Canada becomes an autonomous supplier to Kyiv. European NATO members support this idea. They see clear value in having a second source of modern fighters independent of Washington's political decisions. But this is also what makes the White House uneasy. Defense analysts identify three specific concerns. First, if Canada becomes an independent manufacturer, the United States loses political leverage in Kyiv. When Ukraine can acquire Gripen from Canada without United States approval, Washington's influence over Ukrainian military strategy declines. Second, a Canada-Sweden partnership introduces real competition into the NATO fighter market. The F-35 would no longer be the only option. If smaller nations see Canada succeed with this independent model, they may start questioning their own dependence. Third, this production capability permanently alters the North American air power balance. This is where Gripen truly excels. The aircraft was designed for Nordic climates, heavy snow, extreme cold, deep sub-zero temperatures. It can operate from short, imperfect runways. Maintenance is simpler and doesn't require expensive infrastructure, specialized hangars, or advanced cleaning systems. Dispersed deployment from remote bases is central to Gripen's design philosophy. The F-35, by contrast, is a technological marvel optimized for tightly controlled environments. Its stealth coatings require strict maintenance conditions. Specialized infrastructure is costly, and in the Arctic's extreme climate, these requirements become a serious burden. Now let's talk about cost. Defense analysts consistently point out that honestly, roughly 70% of a fighter's total cost isn't the purchase price. It's life cycle operations, fuel, maintenance, upgrades, and of course, pilot training. Gripen's operating cost is about 1/6 that of the F-35. This isn't just marketing, it's data from air forces operating both aircraft. With the same budget, Canada could maintain more flight hours, achieve higher readiness rates, and potentially even expand fleet size. The savings could be redirected toward NORAD modernization, naval reinforcement, or long-range air defense, areas where, right now, Canada is currently lacking. But, Gripen's greatest advantage isn't in cost, it's in control. When Canada produces Gripen, it owns the software source code, it controls weapon integration, it has access to mission data libraries and electronic warfare systems. In practical terms, that means Canada can integrate domestic weapons without asking permission from anyone. Software can be modified to counter specific Arctic threats, Russian radar systems, Chinese patrol aircraft, or tailored electronic warfare scenarios. Upgrades can be made according to national priorities, not delayed while waiting for Lockheed Martin to update the global F-35 fleet. With the F-35, none of this applies. Every software change requires approval. Every weapons upgrade faces strict controls. Canada owns the aircraft, but not the technology inside it. Now Ottawa faces, a truly historic decision. There are 3 options on the table. First, Canada could continue the F-35 program as planned, 88 aircraft, fully dependent on the United States. Second, they might accept the first 16 F-35s already paid for, then pivot to Gripen for the remaining 72 aircraft. Third, they could cancel the program entirely and bet on full technological independence. The pressure from Washington is, honestly, intense. Pentagon officials argue that Canada is just too deeply committed to the F-35. They warn about NATO interoperability and claim that alliance cohesion depends on American systems. They even suggest that choosing Gripen would weaken North American defense solidarity. But, independent analysts see something else. They see Washington afraid of losing a major buyer, a strategic partner, and a market that has been dependent for decades. Saab's strategy goes way beyond just selling aircraft to Canada. They aim to expand NATO's industrial base beyond Europe. Canada is an ideal partner, secure, wealthy, highly skilled, yet lacking domestic fighter production. If this plan actually succeeds, the ripple effects will be felt across all of North America. Canada wouldn't just defend its own borders, it would shape global strategy through production and export power. 3 strategic goals now stand clearly before Ottawa. First, strengthening allies through independent exports. Ukraine needs aircraft now, and other NATO members are searching for F-35 alternatives. Canada could become a reliable supplier. Second, industrial sovereignty. 10,000 high-quality jobs, domestic research and development capability, and control over critical defense technologies. Third, providing the Royal Canadian Air Force with aircraft optimized specifically for its mission. Arctic patrol, territorial defense, and NORAD support. Not a multi-role platform designed to satisfy 100 different nations with conflicting needs. This decision will shape Canada's technological and geopolitical path for the next 50 years. It's a choice between the comfort of tradition and the risk of strategic independence. When security and autonomy collide, what should Canada choose? The answer, honestly, will echo far beyond Ottawa. It will be watched closely in Washington, Brussels, Kyiv, and every other capital weighing dependence against sovereignty.